I never thought a single tear could shatter a family like glass under a boot heel. But there I was, 16 and trembling in the dim glow of the garage light. My father's calloused hand clamped on my shoulder as if to steady me, or hold me down. "Elias, boy, real men don't cry over fairy tales," he growled, his voice thick with the bourbon he'd nursed all evening, while my mother turned away, her silence louder than any scream. That night, as the first drops hit the oil-stained concrete, I learned that love wasn't just a feeling. It was a battlefield, and mine had just been declared war. The air in our cramped kitchen always smelled of burnt toast and regret, the kind that clung to the yellowed curtains like smoke from a fire no one bothered to put out. We lived in Elmwood, Ohio, a forgotten speck on the map where cornfields stretched like endless accusations and the local diner served pie with a side of judgment. My family wasn't cruel in the cartoonish way of movies. They were the slow-drip poison kind, the ones who mocked your soft spots until you armored up or broke. I was the youngest of 3 brothers, the one they called the sensitive one, from the day I bawled at my goldfish floating belly up in the bowl. Dad, a factory line worker with hands like sandpaper, believed tears were for the weak. Mom, frayed at the edges from years of mopping up after us, just nodded along, her eyes distant like she was mourning a life she never got. My brothers, Jake and Tyler, were the enforcers. Jake, the eldest at 25, was all broad shoulders and beer league football, married young to a girl who baked casseroles and never questioned the Lord's plan. Tyler, 22 and aimless, bounced between jobs at the auto shop, his laugh a bark that echoed through our sagging ranch house. They teased me relentlessly about my skinny frame, my love for sketching in the margins of my notebooks, the way I'd linger too long in the library poring over books about far-off cities. But it was the crying that really set them off. "Elias, you pussy," Tyler would sneer whenever I got choked up over a sad song on the radio or a stray dog limping down Main Street. Jake would pile on, ruffling my hair too hard. "Save the waterworks for the drama club, kid. Ain't nobody hiring crybabies in the real world." I learned to hide it early, swallowed the lump in my throat when Dad lost his overtime shift and came home slamming doors, bit my lip bloody during family dinners when the conversation turned to normal things, like Jake's upcoming baby or Tyler's latest conquest at the bar. But hiding who you are is like trying to dam a river with your bare hands. Eventually, the flood comes. It started with Roman. God, even saying his name now feels like tracing a scar. Tender, raised, impossible to ignore. We met junior year at Elmwood High in Mr. Hargrove's English class, the one where we dissected Steinbeck like he was a frog in biolab. Roman transferred in from Cleveland, all sharp cheekbones and quiet intensity, with skin the color of warm caramel and eyes that held storms behind their calm. He sat 2 rows back, doodling intricate patterns on his desk that looked like maps to secret worlds. I caught him staring once during a discussion on Of Mice and Men, our gazes locking over the dog-eared pages. "Lenny didn't deserve that," he said softly when Hargrove called on him, his voice carrying a lilt that hinted at city edges I could only dream of. I nodded, my heart thudding like it recognized a kindred spirit before my brain could catch up. After class, he lingered by the door, backpack slung low. "You get it, don't you? The whole broken dreams thing." I shrugged, mumbling something about George doing what he had to. But Roman saw through it, the way I fiddled with my pencil, the flush creeping up my neck. "I'm Roman," he said, extending a hand that swallowed mine whole. "Elias," I replied, and just like that, the dam cracked. We fell into an easy rhythm, study sessions at the library that stretched into walks along the railroad tracks, where freight trains rumbled past like judgmental gods. Roman talked about his mom, a nurse who'd raised him alone after his dad split for greener pastures, and how he'd saved every penny from his part-time gig at the bookstore to escape Elmwood's chokehold. I confessed my sketches, the ones of skyline silhouettes that weren't Cleveland's but New York's, impossible and glittering. He never laughed. Instead, he'd traced the lines with his finger, murmuring, "This is you, Elias." Reaching. The first time he kissed me, it was under that old oak in my backyard, the one Dad swore was older than the town itself. Twilight had painted the leaves in bruised purples, and we'd been laughing about some stupid poem when his hand cupped my jaw, thumb brushing my lower lip. "I've wanted to do this since Steinbeck," he whispered, and then his mouth was on mine, soft, urgent, tasting of peppermint gum and possibility. I melted into it, tears pricking my eyes because it felt like coming home to a place I'd never been. When we pulled apart, breathless, he wiped a stray drop from my cheek. Hey, no crying. This is good, right? I laughed, nodding, but inside, the fear coiled like barbed wire. We kept it secret, of course. Stolen moments in his beat-up Civic parked behind the grain silo. Whispered promises during late-night phone calls when the house was finally quiet. Roman made me feel seen, not as the crybaby brother but as Elias, the one with dreams bigger than Ohio's flat horizons. He'd planned these grand escapes in his head. A road trip down Route 66, crashing on cousins' couches until we hit LA, where the sun didn't judge and love wasn't a dirty word. We'll build something real, he'd say, his fingers laced through mine. A home, Elias. Not just four walls, but ours. But secrets in Elmwood were like dandelions. Pretty until the wind scattered them everywhere. It was Tyler who found out first. He'd come home early from a shift, catching us in the garage fumbling with a flat tire on Roman's car. The air was thick with summer heat and the scent of motor oil when Tyler burst through the side door, six-pack in hand. Roman and I sprang apart, but it was too late. The look on Tyler's face wasn't shock. It was disgust laced with that familiar mockery. "What the hell is this?" he barked, eyes darting between us. Roman stepped forward, chin up. "It's none of your business, man." But Tyler ignored him, zeroing in on me like a hawk on a field mouse. "Elias? You? With him?" His laugh started low, building to a guffaw that echoed off the rafters. "Oh, this is rich. The little crybaby's got a boyfriend. Wait till Dad hears. He'll piss himself laughing." I froze, the world narrowing to the pulse hammering in my ears. "Tyler, please." My voice cracked, and there it was. The tear, slipping free like a traitor. Tyler's grin widened. "Feral. Look at you already blubbering. Jesus, Elias, grow a pair. Or is that what he's here for?" Roman lunged, shoving Tyler back against the workbench, tools clattering to the floor. "Shut your mouth," he snarled. But Tyler just shoved him off, spilling beer across the concrete. "Get out, both of you. And Elias, don't come crying to me when the family finds out." That night, the floodgates opened. Dad called a family meeting in the living room, the one where the sagging couch sported permanent indentations from our collective weights. Mom hovered by the kitchen doorway, wringing a dish towel like it was my neck. Jake arrived with his wife, Tara, her belly just starting to show under her floral blouse. Tyler spilled it all, embellishing with glee. The kiss, the tears, Roman's fancy city talk. Dad's face turned the color of storm clouds, veins bulging at his temples. "Is this true, boy?" he demanded, not looking at me. I stood there, arms wrapped around my ribs, nodding because words felt like grenades. "Yeah, it is." The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring, before it snapped. Jake barked a laugh first, short and disbelieving. "Elias, come on. This some phase? Like that time you cried over the notebook?" Tara elbowed him, but her eyes were pitying, the worst kind. Tyler piled on. "Told you, Dad. He's always been soft. Now look. Full-on fairy tale." Mom finally spoke, her voice a whisper. "We raised you better." But it was Dad who delivered the killing blow. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, eyes hard as flint. "Real men build families, Elias. They don't. This, and crying? Christ, you're 20 now. Act like it or get out." The tears came then, hot and unstoppable, carving tracks down my face. I didn't bother wiping them. Let them fall, pooling on the faded carpet. Jake snorted. "See? Waterworks. Pathetic." Tyler mimicked me, fake sobbing into his sleeve until Dad waved him quiet. "Enough," Dad said, standing. "You're shaming us, boy. Fix it or live with it on your own." He stormed out to the garage, the door slamming like a judge's gavel. Mom followed, leaving me in the wreckage with my brother's chuckles fading into the night. Roman waited in his car down the block, engine idling like a getaway plan. I slid into the passenger seat, collapsing against the vinyl. "They know," I choked out, and he pulled me close, his arms a fortress. "Hey, breathe." We're in this. But even as he drove us to the edge of town, to that overlook where the stars felt close enough to touch, I could taste the betrayal. Not just from family, but from the boy I'd been, the one who'd hoped love could rewrite the script. The weeks that followed blurred into a haze of survival and stolen glances. I moved into Roman's mom's basement apartment, a dim, carpeted cave with posters of jazz legends peeling from the walls and the faint hum of the dehumidifier as our soundtrack. Mrs. Hale, Roman's mom, welcomed me with a hug that smelled of lavender soap and hospital antiseptic. "Plenty of room for dreamers here," she said, her eyes crinkling with the kind of warmth my own mother had forgotten how to give. She worked doubles at the ER, so it was mostly just us, Roman and me, navigating the wreckage of my old life while building something fragile and new. School became a minefield. Whispers slithered through the halls like smoke. Elias and that new guy. Yeah, there. Tyler had spread it like gospel, turning my coming out into town gossip fodder. Kids I'd known since kindergarten averted their eyes or snickered behind cupped hands. Even Mr. Hargrove pulled me aside after class one day, his mustache twitching with discomfort. "Son, life's tough enough without complications. Focus on your grades." I nodded, biting back the retort that Steinbeck would have called him out for his own buried dreams. Roman was my anchor, though, slipping notes into my locker with doodles of us as explorers, claiming uncharted lands. "Ignore the noise," he'd say, kissing my temple in the school parking lot where no one could see. "We're the story, not them." But the mockery festered. At home, my old home, which I visited only for laundry and the occasional tense dinner, Dad's silences grew heavier, like thunderheads waiting to burst. Mom left casseroles on the porch with notes. "Eat something. Pray on it." Jake, ever the golden boy, cornered me once in the driveway, his breath reeking of cheap cologne. "Look, Elias, I get it, hormones or whatever, but Dad's talking divorce if you don't snap out of it. Tara's stressed. The baby's coming. Don't be selfish." Selfish. The word lodged in my throat like a fishbone. I wanted to scream that loving Roman wasn't a phase or a spite. It was the first honest breath I'd taken in years. Instead, I cried quiet, shuddering sobs that made Jake roll his eyes. "Still with the waterworks? Man up, bro." For once, Roman saw the toll it took. We'd lie on his twin bed, the springs creaking under our weight, and he'd trace the shadows under my eyes. "You're stronger than they know," he'd murmur, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through my chest. We talked futures then, real ones, not fairy tales. Roman had lined up a scholarship to Ohio State, studying architecture because buildings are promises we keep. I dreamed of art school, maybe Pratt in Brooklyn, where the streets pulsed with color and no one batted an eye at two guys holding hands. "We'll go together," he'd say, and I'd believe him, because in his arms, belief was easy. Summer hit like a freight train, humid and unrelenting. I took a job at the local hardware store, stocking shelves and ringing up fertilizer for farmers who eyed me like I'd sprouted horns. Roman worked construction, his skin bronzing under the sun, muscles corded from hauling lumber. Evenings, we'd collapse on the splintered dock by the river, feet dangling in the murky water, sharing dreams over lukewarm beers we'd swiped from Tyler's stash. That's when he told me about the house, a fixer-upper in the suburbs of Columbus, listed cheap because the roof leaked like a sieve. "Imagine it," he said, sketching blueprints on a napkin. "Kitchen with an island for lazy mornings. Backyard for barbecues. Our place, Elias. No more basements." The idea ignited something in me, a spark against the damp chill of doubt. I threw myself into saving. Skipped lunches, picked up overtime, even sold some sketches online to strangers who saw value where my family saw scribbles. Roman matched me penny for penny, his eyes lighting up whenever we'd tally our jar of loose change. "We're doing it," he'd whisper, pulling me into a kiss that tasted of sweat and hope. For the first time, crying felt like release, not weakness. Tears of joy when we'd hit a milestone, like the night we crossed $500. But betrayal has a way of creeping in like fog off the river. It started small. Roman's phone buzzing late at night with texts he dismissed as work stuff. Then the canceled plans. "Cruise behind schedule, babe. Rain check." I'd nod, ignoring the twist in my gut, because trust was our foundation. Until the night I borrowed his phone to call Mrs. Hale about dinner. The message preview glowed like an accusation. Missed you last night. When can we tell them about us? L. L for Lucas. Roman's old high school buddy from Cleveland. The one he'd mentioned offhand as just a bro. My hands shook as I scrolled. Messages laced with inside jokes, heart emojis, a photo of them at a bar, arms slung casual but too close. Can't wait to see you again. That kiss was fire. The world tilted. I confronted him when he got home. The basement air thick with unspoken rot. Who's L? I asked, voice steady as I could manage. Roman's face drained of color, his sketchpad slipping from his lap. Elias, it's not. Not what? The tears came, hot and furious, splashing onto the phone screen. You said we were endgame. Our home. Was that bullshit too? He reached for me, but I jerked back. Lucas is complicated. We hooked up once years ago. He's visiting, that's all. I swear you're it for me. His eyes pleaded, but doubt had rooted deep. Then why hide it? Why let me think? He cut me off with a desperate kiss, murmuring apologies into my skin. But it felt hollow, like echoes in an empty room. The fight spilled over days. I slept on the couch, sketching furious lines that tore the paper. Roman tried, flowers from the corner store, mixtapes of our songs, but the crack was there, widening. Tyler, of all people, texted me, heard your boy's cheating. Told you city slickers can't be trusted. Come home, crybaby. I deleted it, but the seed took. Paranoia bloomed. Every late shift, every vague text. Roman begged for time, for us to push through. This house, it's our proof. Don't let them win. But they already had. My family, with their barbs. Lucas, the ghost from Roman's past. And me, the fool who cried rivers thinking love was enough. Autumn leaves turned Elmwood into a postcard of decay. Reds and golds carpeting the streets like blood from a fresh wound. The betrayal festered, turning our basement haven into a pressure cooker. Roman doubled down on work, coming home with blisters on his palms and exhaustion in his posture, as if labor could mortar the fissures between us. Look, he'd say, spreading out real estate listings on the wobbly kitchen table. This one's got good bones. We could afford the down payment by spring. I'd stare at the photos, porches begging for rockers, kitchens with sunlit windows, and feel a pang, sharp as homesickness for a life we hadn't built yet. But Lucas's shadow loomed, his texts a siren call Roman swore he'd silenced. Blocked him, Elias. For us. I wanted to believe, but trust, once chipped, crumbles like dry clay. The climax hit on a Friday night, the kind where thunder rumbles distant but inevitable. I'd closed at the hardware store, rain-slicked and bone-tired, dreaming of Roman's arms as I drove to a cheap motel on the outskirts. Our temporary truce, a neutral ground to talk without the basement's ghosts. But when I pulled into the lot, there was his Civic, hood beaded with water, parked crooked beside a familiar truck. Tyler's. My stomach plummeted. I killed the engine, heart jackhammering, and crept toward the window, the neon vacancy sign buzzing like a swarm of accusations. Through the rain-streaked glass of room 7, I saw them. Roman, shirt untucked, laughing at something Tyler said. My brother, the betrayer who'd outed me, now slouched on the bed like they were old pals. No Lucas, but the intimacy stung worse. Tyler's hand clapping Roman's shoulder, lingering too long. Roman's face lit up in a way it hadn't for me in weeks. Unguarded. Alive. I pressed my palm to the cold glass, tears mingling with the downpour on my cheeks. This wasn't just doubt. It was demolition. Tyler poisoning the one good thing I'd claimed? Roman entertaining it? I burst through the door, soaked and shaking, the knob slick under my grip. What the fuck is this? The room reeked of stale smoke and betrayal. Tyler shot up, smirking that same cruel curl. Well, if it isn't the water boy, come to join the party. Roman's eyes widened, chair scraping back. Elias, how did you? Doesn't matter. I spat, voice raw. You two plotting my takedown? Tyler feeds you lines to keep me weak, and you lap it up. Tyler laughed, a bark that ricocheted off the paneled walls. He's the one who called me genius, said you were spiraling, crying all the time. Thought family should know. Roman flushed, stepping forward. I was worried. You shut down after the Lucas thing, barely talk, barely touch. I called Tyler for advice. Yeah, but not to hurt you. Advice. From the brother who'd mocked me into silence? The tears came unbidden, streaming as I backed toward the door. You don't get it. They're not family. They're chains. And you're supposed to be my freedom. Tyler snorted. Freedom? Look at you blubbering in a motel. Pathetic. Roman's right, you need tough love. He advanced, looming, but Roman shoved between us, his back to me like a shield. Back off, Tyler. This isn't helping. The thunder cracked then, close enough to rattle the windows, mirroring the storm in my chest. Helping? I echoed, voice breaking. You betrayed me first, Roman, with lies, with him lurking in your phone. And now this? Inviting my jailer to fix me? Roman turned, eyes pleading, rain dripping from my hair pooling at our feet. I love you, Elias. Messy, stupid love. But your tears, they scare me, like you're drowning, and I can't pull you out. His words landed like punches. Love as pity? I laughed, bitter and wet. Scared? Try living with a family that sees every drop as defeat. Try loving someone who flinches at your vulnerability. Tyler muttered, drama queen. But Roman's face crumpled, the first crack in his armor. I fled into the storm, lightning forking the sky as I ran to my car, sobs wrenched from my gut. The drive home, to the basement that no longer felt like ours, was a blur of wipers and wails. Roman's texts lit my phone. Wait, please, we're better than this. But I silenced it, curling on the couch as rain lashed the tiny window. Dawn brought clarity, cold and unyielding. I couldn't build a home on rubble. Not with him, not with them. The unraveling accelerated. Roman moved out a week later, crashing with a coworker while I hollowed myself for the fight ahead. Work became my religion, double shifts, cold calls for freelance art gigs. Every dollar a brick in my wall. Tyler texted taunts. Running scared? Dad says you're dead to us. Mom's silence was its own grave. Jake called once. Awkward. Fix this, Elias. For the baby. But I was done fixing their version of me. Spring thawed the fields, and with it came the closing. I'd found the house on my own. A squat bungalow in a Columbus neighborhood called Linden Heights, where porches sagged but neighbors waved from gardens bursting with tulips. It wasn't Roman's dream Victorian. It was mine. Affordable on my wages, with a studio nook for sketching and a yard for whatever grew from dirt and determination. The realtor, a no-nonsense woman named Carla with a smoker's rasp, handed me the keys after the final walkthrough. First time? She asked, eyeing my trembling hands. I nodded, throat tight. Yeah, took everything I had. Standing on that porch as the sun dipped low, keys biting into my palm, the tears came, not of defeat, but defiance. They traced paths down my face, warm against the evening chill, and for once, I let them fall unchecked. No family to mock, no lover to flinch. Just me, Elias, homeowner at 23, in a country that promised reinvention if you dared claim it. Roman showed up a month later, unannounced, toolbox in hand. Heard through the grapevine, he said, nodding at the peeling trim. Need help with the gutters? His eyes searched mine, hopeful but humbled. No grand gestures, just quiet offer. I hesitated, the scar of betrayal still tender, but something shifted. Maybe the back ones, I allowed, stepping aside. We worked in companionable silence at first, the rhythm of hammer and saw bridging the gap words couldn't. Over takeout on the half-painted kitchen floor, he confessed, I was scared too, of your depth, your heart. Thought I could toughen us up. Biggest mistake. I listened, really listened, and saw the boy who'd sketched our future, not the ghost of Lucas or Tyler's pawn. I forgive the mess, I said finally. But not if it repeats. He nodded, his tears glistening. No repeats. Partners for real. Word trickled back to Elmwood. Dad drove down uninvited one Sunday, parking his truck crooked in my driveway. He stood on the porch, hat in hands, looking smaller than I remembered. Heard you bought this place. On your own. His voice gruff, eyes avoiding mine. Proud. In a way. No apology, but it was a start, the crack in his armor mirroring mine. Mom followed weeks later, bearing pie and a tentative hug. "We were wrong," she whispered, and I cried then, pulling her inside to see the studio walls lined with my art. Jake and Tara visited with the baby, a squirming bundle who gummed my finger and cooed at my sketches. Tyler? He stayed away, but a card arrived on my birthday. "Congrats, crybaby. Guess you built something after all." No warmth, but no barbs either. Roman and I were still mending, therapy sessions in a sunlit office, date nights at indie theaters where we hold hands unashamed. The house grows with us. Herb garden out back, photos on the mantle of trips to the coast, where waves crash without judgment. It's not perfect, this life. Love demands the work, and tears still come, for joys as much as pains. But in America, where reinvention is the national hymn, I've learned courage isn't dry-eyed stoicism. It's the sheer, stubborn effort to rise, wet-faced and all, and call a place home. And on quiet nights, when Roman pulls me close on our creaky porch swing, watching fireflies dance like errant stars, I know. The mocking stopped not because I hardened, but because I dared to soften and stand anyway.